Do you think this intro is cheesy?
I think we need to start with something, but
We do need to start
we
with
just,
something.
yeah.
Maybe if it sucks, we get rid of it, and by then we'll be rolling.
Yeah, I mean, the first episode's going to be the first episode. I mean, we're only going to get
Well,
better.
you can't argue with that math,
Yeah.
John.
Yeah, we're only going to get better.
Okay. Are we doing it?
Yeah.
Are we podcasting right now?
We are on the air, so to speak.
Okay. Ever been stuck in a boat that won't budge? Join us as we turn your boating headaches into smooth sailing adventures right here on Boats and Pros. This podcast is intended as an accompaniment to YouTube videos that we will be recording. Some of these videos will be instructional, some will be fun builds, and we will also be offering instructional content and paid consulting services for specific projects. This is going to be a very casual format with minimal production. We're not going to try to make it all fancy schmancy because we are just not those guys. We're new to this, so please bear with us as we try to give you guys a peek into our sticky, itchy, fiberglassy boaty world. Not every topic or discussion will be related directly to fiberglass. We're here to talk about boats in general, but we will be leaning into the composite side of things more so than the mechanical side of things. My name's Nick Irison. I've been fiberglassing for about 15 years. Made my share of mistakes. Made some pretty sweet boats too. Done some cool projects. Learned from every one of them. And now I'm here to help you.
Hey, I'm John. I've been helping Nick fix boats for about 20 years now. We met in high school, and we've got some awesome stories from all the years, from boat repairs, adventures, shenanigans, and some things we're not going to talk about.
We just said 15 years and 20 years. Friends for 20 years. I see what you did there.
Yeah.
We're not going to edit that out. We've been friends for 20 years. I've been working on boats for 15 years. And John's been there the whole way. That's a fact.
So for this episode, we're just going to try to give you a little bit of background on us and where we started, how we got here today, and where we're going in the future.
We don't know.
So let's start with a couple questions. What got you into fiberglass?
My dad's a car guy. He's a Englishman, and he moved over here. I moved over here from the UK. He always did cars, old Jags, Triumph, TR6, Spitfires, MGs, stuff like that. He always had a thing for Mini Coopers, the old school Mini Coopers. He would import them over here and fix them up, paint them, sell them. And when I was about 16 years old or so, he got a wild idea to do a Mini Cooper show car, but we were going to do it for the show circuit, for like the Hot Import Nights, Nopi scene. I don't know if you remember that.
The 2000s.
Yeah, right lined up with the first Fast and the Furious movie. Back in those days, you could win some money and some prizes. You weren't going to actually like profit anything off it, but you could cover your expenses. If you got best of show, usually you get a set of wheels and tires you could sell, or a check to at least cover travel and expenses and stuff like that. So we built this Mini Cooper, and we put a Honda VTEC B16 motor in the back of it and like a mid-engine configuration. And we put a body kit on it, a wide body kit that he had ordered off the internet. It took a little tweaking to get it to fit, but we got it to fit, and we did about 2 years of the car show scene with that. And we won a lot of awards, and we were encouraged to do another build, and we brought some sponsors on, and we did the second project was a twin engine mini pickup. So they actually made a pickup truck back in the late 60s, early 70s, and it was just exactly about the same size as a Mini Cooper, but pickup truck. And so we did one of those with a motor in the front and a motor in the back, which I'm sure you remember.
Oh, yeah.
And so that car we decided to do a full custom body on. And I was coming towards the end of high school at that point. There was a guy who rented some space at the end of the industrial park where my dad had his shop. His name was Dave Borman. And this guy was like the quintessential fiberglass mad scientist, conflicted, starving artist, all of the above. Super cool guy, very quirky, but very knowledgeable with fiberglass. And he had this divinely inspired project that he was working on, which was hydrofoil of sorts, but it looked more like a spaceship than anything. It was a jet ski whole bottom, and then it came up with two hydrofoil arms off the side of it that were on hydraulic actuators. It was supposed to have a turbine engine, like a helicopter engine initially, but the funding for that never came through, or I don't know exactly where that went. But we ended up putting a Mercury 250 or 300 on it to test it. And this thing was crazy looking. You can go on Google and type in Sea Phantom, and you'll see some pictures of it. It was a project that potentially had some really big potential, but to my knowledge, it never went anywhere. But anyway, my dad sent me up to Dave Borman's place. He said, go learn something, figure out this fiberglass stuff, and we're going to make a full custom body for this car instead of buying a body kit and fitting it to the car. So I went up to Dave's place and told him I'd work for him for the summer for free if he would teach me something, and we kind of had a little exchange deal. He would let me use some materials on side projects, and I did grunt work, sanding, buffing, helped him laminate, learned the basics of catalyzing properly and material compatibility, things like that, how to clean up after yourself, a little bit about personal safety, PPE, but just enough to be dangerous, really. And went back to my dad's shop at the end of the summer, and we basically built the body for this car, which if you go on Google again, type in Iverson Motorsports, maybe if we're organized enough, we can put a couple of these links in the project notes here or show notes. What would a podcaster call that? Joe Rogan would say show notes, I think.
Cliff notes.
Joe notes.
Joe knows.
So we built the body for the car. We used foam, 2-inch thick foam, glued it, stacked it, carved it, glassed it, primed it, painted it. The car has a gull wing door. The whole interior of the car is fiberglass, carbon fiber air intakes coming down off the rear spoiler. A very, very unique little car that won a lot of awards for years, basically until it got to the point where it was like beating a dead horse to show up with it. Probably 3 or 4 years we did the circuit with it, and then now it sits in his garage at his house.
In a bubble.
It should be in a bubble, but it's not. I got a little distracted there, but that's how I got involved with fiberglass, John.
All right. So was the mini truck your big project, your first one?
It was the first big project that I didn't get paid for.
All right.
My first big project that I got paid for was a set of commercial coolers, fish boxes, for a grouper fisherman down at Fort Myers Beach. And this guy and his sons had an operation. They had the cleanest, most well-maintained, most high-class commercial fishing boat that I've ever seen. This thing was all gripped out, no gel coat exposed anywhere, and he wanted some fish boxes to match the rest of the boat. So he didn't just want the normal wrap it, glass it, web it, or gel it and web it. He wanted it to be fully finished. We had tackle trays on the side with knife holders, and the lids were squish molded, double-sided lids with tool retention grooves around the top. And it was we majorly underbid this job. The idea of how we were going to do it was very clear in our mind, but the execution of it turned out to be a little bit different than what we expected, and we ended up with hundreds of hours in these things. They had a capacity of about 2,500 pounds apiece, three compartments each, 2 boxes total. They were about like 4-foot cubes, pretty much, maybe a little bigger, maybe 60-inch cubes, 60 by 60 by maybe like 45, something like that. And by the time we were done with those things, we could not have been more happy to see them go. But he was delighted with them, and we barely broke even.
How many of those were there?
Just 2.
Okay.
2 boxes, but each box had 3 compartments in it.
So is that your transition from cars to boats?
Kind of. I had kind of jumped over into boat stuff a little bit before that. I actually got dragged into the boating stuff through jet skis. My dad had a neighbor who had a jet ski rental business in front of the Lani Kai on Fort Myers Beach, which, if you know anything about Fort Myers Beach, you definitely know something about the Lani Kai. And you might know something about a penicillin shot.
Fantasies.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Rest in peace, although they are rebuilding it. But so this guy had a jet ski rental business in front of a very busy college spring break destination. And so these things got torn up pretty frequently. And he would bring the skis to me to fix them. And at about the same time, I got hooked on the old school stand-up jet skis, Kawasaki X2s, 550SX, then starting in on FX1s, wave blasters, Yamaha stuff, and motor swaps, pump swaps. Um, got pretty crazy into that, and it kind of eventually it turned into a way to feed the habit to just fix jet skis and build them at the same time.
I remember the carbon fiber X2 hood.
Oh yes, that was another break-even endeavor. I decided I was going to try to teach myself how to infuse visual carbon fiber in the garage of my house with my two roommates, and plenty of beer-induced encouragement. And I would say, how many of those do you think I tried?
At least 3 that I remember.
Yeah, I was going to say 4 or 5. I sold one for sure. I had one on my ski, and then the rest were, there was more failures than successes. I'll put it that way. And I think it was about $600 a pop in resin and carbon at my cost when I was trying them.
So would you say that was not your most favorite project?
I've had some way worse ones than that. I mean, I at least didn't lose money on it. Although I've never really lost too much money on a project, but I've had plenty of break-even endeavors. Let's say if I had to pick a favorite project from the past, it would be a Morgan I built for a car dealer down in Fort Myers. It was a generational business, and they had decided they wanted to build a custom center console Morgan, which is kind of like basically a stone crab boat or a blue crab boat. It's like it had no business being built fancy. Like 24 feet long, about a 9-foot beam, very little draft, probably 10 inches or something like that, a real 10 inches. And they were inboards back in the day, but now people build them with outboards and porta brackets. And we built them a boat that was basically, they found a guy who had the old school mold, and they flew us up to Perry, Florida with them on a charter flight to inspect the mold and talk to the guy about what he was going to build. He popped a mold out of the hole with stringers, had it delivered to our shop down in Fort Myers, and we basically built out a fully finished custom boat from that with recessed speakers and the gunnels and a custom live well with 2 compartments and acrylic lids, a custom console, front bench that flipped open on gas shocks, storage in the floor, every option that we gave these guys, they wanted to run with it. And so it was kind of a cool way to express what we could do with that boat because they didn't really say no to anything. They just let us do whatever we wanted. And then it sat on the lift for quite a few years. They barely used it. It was really a shame.
And didn't it just sell?
It did. It sold a guy on the east coast of Florida. He called me up one day looking for some build information, and I dug up some old pictures for him and sent him over his way. And I think he's using it more now than it ever has been.
So if you're down in southeast Florida, you could possibly see it out on the water.
Yep, Fighting Lady Yellow.
So would that be your most unique project out of all of them?
No, my most unique project goes to a very unique character named Doug, who called me one day. He had bought a brand new yacht from a yacht dealer in Fort Myers. It was a boat that was built in Poland, and I think it was 1 point something mil. And this boat was sold to him as having a tender garage in it, which basically meant that over the engines and like parallel with the swim platform was a little area where you could pull an inflatable dinghy that had an inboard jet engine into it and store it in this tender garage, and then the swim platform closed down over it so you couldn't see it in there. Well, he got this boat delivered, and the dinghy would not fit without having to be slightly deflated. If it was fully inflated, how it would be when you used it, the door wouldn't close. So you had to let probably 20 or 30% of the air out of this thing so you could squish the back down and kind of force the hatch door, which was the whole rear seating area, down onto it. And he was not having it. He told the boat dealer that he wasn't going to accept the boat, and the boat manufacturer told him that if he didn't want it, he could send it back. And the boat dealer wanted their couple $100,000 in commission or whatever it was, so they decided that they were going to take it upon themselves to fix the problem. And they tried to hire a couple of local guys to do it, and I think they kind of floundered around for a few weeks, and the customer, who was a subcontractor for a lot of military projects, and so he had crews of labor, and he was used to doing things himself, decided that he was going to undertake the modification of this brand new yacht and then forward the bill to the boat dealer, who would then pay him and then release the boat to him afterwards. So,
wow.
Yeah, he had this thing blocked up in the parking lot of this boat dealership, and he had a detailer who had been polishing his boats for years who told him that he also did some fiberglass work and he could help him with the job. So Doug flew a bunch of his employees down from Georgia, and this other guy who I won't name was heading up the project, but he and Doug were butting heads pretty bad, and basically after a few days of trying to get this thing going, Doug realized this guy wasn't the guy. This guy realized he didn't want to be working for Doug. Doug decided that he was going to call around and try to find someone else to help. So he just went on Google listings and typed in fiberglass repair. And of course, there I was. So I get a phone call from this real hyper guy who's trying to explain this crazy sounding project to me. And I basically just said, look, I got to come look at this thing. Just give me the address. I'll meet you there in the morning and we'll see what happens. And we ended up cutting the whole back of this boat out and forming a dirty mold for a new tender garage, I guess is what they were calling it, and mounting it into this boat. We had to bag up all different aspects of it. We had so much grinding to do. I know we filled the interior of that yacht with some fiberglass dust. We tried as hard as we could not to, but I can guarantee you that we dusted that thing out. But I think we worked on that boat for 3 weeks straight in the parking lot of this boat dealership, and we got it done. And it was by far the most unique, mostly because of the customer, not the boat, but the customer.
Oh, that fiberglass dust. And
It'll get you, dude. It'll get you.
I remember someone I worked with at the RV place when he worked at a fiberglass place that was apparently next to a nail salon, and one of the girls made him mad. So he went into their bathroom one day, unrolled their toilet paper roll, and sprinkled fiberglass dust on the toilet paper, then rolled it back up meticulously, and never went back in that bathroom.
Man, that's some serial killer stuff right there. Like, there's no coming back from that.
No.
That's itchy cooter for a week.
So with all this fun being sticky, itchy, constantly, why did you go into fiberglass?
It's I was too lazy to really pursue something in college, although I probably should have tried something a little bit different. I kind of always knew that I was going to work for myself. I knew that an office job would not entertain me or keep my attention. And with my interest in stand-up jet skis and my background in automotive body and paint from my dad, and the area that I lived in was one of the fishiest places in the country. You know, Southwest Florida is home of the tarpon fishing, snook fishing, all that good stuff. So I was surrounded by boats. It kind of became like a logical conclusion for me to at least try it. And I just never really managed to get away from it, honestly. The possibilities that you have with building with fiberglass are so much different than any other materials. You know, a carpenter, obviously, you make a miscut on your wood, you need a new piece of wood. Or, you know, a welder, potentially the same thing. They've got a little more leeway because you can just weld it up. But, like, fiberglass, if you don't get it right the first time, you grind it back, try it again, try it a different way. Like, you have an unlimited range. There's really no rule book. There are certain hard rules as far as material compatibility and catalyzation and things like that. But aside from that, it's just whatever you can think of method to get it done. And nobody can tell you exactly what the right way is. I can tell you what the wrong way is. I've spent a lot of years messing things up. I like to tell people that I can't say exactly what the right way is, but I guarantee you I can tell you a few wrong ways to do it. So it's kind of like a self-taught trial and error thing. And I think that's why a lot of fiberglass guys get a bad rap, because they don't necessarily know the job that they're about to do, but they'll take it on. And if they misjudge the amount of time or materials it's going to take, they often pass that cost on to the customer. And so the price all of a sudden goes up at the end of the job, which everybody hates. So I think that creates a lot of animosity between glass guys and their customers. So one thing that I always made a point to do was, if I misquoted it, I would eat it. Finish the job, make sure they're happy, make sure they're telling their friends about me. As long as I'm not losing or hemorrhaging money, then let's just move on to the next one.
So, have you made any money then?
I'm definitely not rich, I'll tell you that. I'm driving a 2007 truck right now.
She's a beaut.
She's a something. She starts up when I ask her to. I used to buy and sell a lot of stuff, so I think that kind of added into the excitement and helped with the profit. I would buy an old jet ski or a boat here and there, buff it up, get the motor running, sell it along. There were times where I had convinced myself that I had built a business, but realistically, I created a good job for myself. I've given myself 15 plus years of pretty steady work. I've had the freedom to take off days whenever I want to, do whatever I want to do, make my own schedule, have some pretty good experiences, but definitely not sitting with Elon Musk money in the bank right now, I'll tell you that.
No, but you got a sweet hurricane out front.
Oh, yeah, and a 1993 or so bass boat to go with it.
Oh, yeah.
But, the deals, some of the buying and selling of the deals was half the fun back in the day, and a lot of times I would get stuff given to me as well. Do you remember the floating dock?
How could I forget? Riding it in the Caloosahatchee?
Oh yeah, my wife and I's first house was a house on the water at the end of a canal in Fort Myers on what apparently they call a canal de sac. And this thing had no dock; it just was like equivalent to like a shipping pallet hanging off the concrete seawall there. And as we were renovating the house, we were trying to decide what we were going to do about a dock. And I'm pretty sure my father-in-law, though I don't know how, he found this guy, wealthy guy in a nice neighborhood, waterfront on the Caloosahatchee River, who had this floating dock that he wanted to give away because he wanted to get it off his dock. But it wasn't like the traditional floating dock that you're thinking of with like the square plastic like jigsaw puzzle pieces.
Like a deck.
Yeah, no, this was two giant fiberglass pontoons, and they had bilge pumps and holes in it, and it would fill and empty water in the pontoons to raise and lift this dock. So you would drain all the air or fill the pontoons with water, pull the boat up onto the dock, then pump the water out of the pontoons so that it floated back to the surface with the boat on it. And this thing was, 32, 30,
Big.
30-something feet long and probably 12 feet wide.
Yeah.
Because it would take a boat with an 8-foot beam with some space to walk down each side.
I'd say that those tubes were about 6 feet?
Diameter?
Yeah.
Nah, maybe 3 feet. They were big.
They were big.
They were
yeah.
big. They were a lot bigger than pontoon boat pontoons, that's for sure. This guy wanted rid of this thing so bad that he volunteered to tow it to the local marina, which we had already lined up for them to use their forklift and haul it out, put it on a trailer for us so we could transport it to...
Somewhere.
You know what's really funny is this is the first time that it ever occurred to me, but what were we going to do with that? We should have had him pull it the extra 2 miles down the river to the house and be done with it. What were we going to do with that once we got it to where it was going?
Now I'm even thinking about it. Would it even worked going down that canal?
No, it wasn't going to fit. That's why we didn't fix it.
No.
So, aside from a clear lack of planning, this guy tows the thing to this marina, and they try to use their forklift to lift it out. We've got the trailer ready. The forklift goes straight through one of the fiberglass pontoons, basically totals it out. Like, it could have been fixed if we really wanted to, but it wasn't but about 10 minutes of reflecting on how broken this thing was that we realized pretty quickly that it was never going to work anyway.
Nope.
And then I'm pretty sure that we must have been tasked with disposing of it.
I don't remember.
I don't either. And
I
that says a
remember
lot
us-
about how much you should wear a respirator.
I remember us walking away from it and being like, oh, man, that was a ride.
Yeah, we were riding that thing like a rodeo bull, one on each pontoon at one point for absolutely no reason. Just because we could.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, if that's not responsible boating, I don't know what is.
No. I also remember trying to rip the tank out of the Mako.
Yeah, I gave that boat away with the tank still in it. That was the only one that ever beat me. And not by coincidence, it's because it was my boat not getting paid for it.
Yep.
I'm sure if someone else was cutting a check, I would have dragged that thing out of there, but
I mean, we tried.
we did try.
We broke all 4 of the lifting eyes on it.
Yeah, those Makos, the way they foamed those tanks in was brutal. They really, really hung in there.
Yeah, we carved out all the way around it as much as we could. And tried to pull and boink, boink.
We had 4x4s across the gunnels and ratchet straps and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, very professional.
Yeah, well, You know, when it comes to boat building, you don't always want to see how the sausage is made.
That is very true.
Well, I think that's about enough for our first inaugural podcast here. Hopefully, you guys were able to bear with us to the end, and so there should be some more coming down the line. Get ready to hear from some guests, some industry veterans, some wild stories, fishing guides, towboat owners. We've got a pretty impressive list of guests. If we can work out the technological side of things here, well, then should be able to bring some good content to you guys. So please check back for our next episode. Until then, cheers.
Cheers.